Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session of the AALS section on technology, law, and legal education, the summer webinar series. We're excited to share with you today's session on multimedia grading tools, advancing the community of inquiry. I'm Sid Beckman, professor of law at Lincoln Memorial University's Duncan School of Law. Before I introduce today's presenter, let me say a couple of things about logistics. Today's webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes. Our presenter will speak and share their thoughts on today's topic for the first 30 minutes or so. We'll reserve approximately 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. To ask questions, please type your questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to type in your questions at any point during the webinar. The questions will be read and answered during the Q&A portion of the webinar. Today's webinar and all the webinars in the summer series are being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing. You can access the recorded webinars by going to the AALS section on technology webpage. At the conclusion of the webinar, you'll receive an email with the handouts from today's session, as well as a survey link. Please take a few moments to complete the survey. Your feedback is important to us and informs the topics and format for future presentations. That completes our logistics. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today's webinar. We're thrilled to be joined today by Joshua Aaron Jones, legal writing professor at California Western School of Law. Professor Jones serves as a legal research and writing professor at California Western School of Law. Before joining CWSL, he was a visiting professor at Indiana University Robert H. McKinney School of Law. Prior to full-time teaching, Jones was an adjunct faculty member at Pensacola State College and the University of West Florida. Professor Jones' scholarship focuses on LRW, family law, and LGBTQ+ rights. Jones earned his JD and a Master's of Education Law at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law, and his Master's of Laws in Government and Public Policy at the University of Pacific McGeorge School of Law. Professor Jones, I turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Sid. So to get us started, if you would like to download the slides and follow along in case there's a glitch in the system or something, or if you just want to review these later, you're welcome to do that by scanning this QR code. If you had it downloaded already, you could also click this. So I'll give you just a second to do that in case you want. And after the presentation, you're welcome to email me also, and I will send you the slides directly. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to scan or type in the bit.ly web link. So what we'll do today is first, I want to talk about sort of the overview of educational frameworks, and then we'll get specific about what is the community of inquiry, and then we'll talk about online grading, and we'll have some examples. So I think that it's important that we put the link in the chat? I sure can. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. There you go. So I think as law professors, we hear a lot of these education field terms and concepts, but we don't really spend a lot of time digging into them and truly letting them guide our instructional design. So keep these in mind. Our mind, brain, and education science right now says that we have these 7 intelligences. And this is the idea of what type of learner are you that people always ask, which we now know is a complete misunderstanding of that concept of 7 intelligences. And then we have learning theories, and then we have the taxonomies like Bloom's taxonomy. But then in the logistical side of your educational principles, we have your own philosophy, and we have your pedagogical decisions and those actual techniques that you employ in the classroom. And so all of that together will turn into your educational framework. So when we say the 7 intelligences, we're talking about linguistic, interpersonal, visual, and so on. And there were studies, the Gardner study about multiple intelligences It was never meant to say that we are one type of learner. Everybody employs all 7 of these intelligences to perceive the world. So when we use that phrase, what type of learner are you, we really are damaging our students, because then they become really attached to that idea of, oh, well, this professor uses a lot of visuals and I'm not a visual learner, so I'm not going to do well in this class. But that's not really true. We should have our students think about all of their intelligences. We may have preferences, right? I prefer visuals, but we have to use all of these. And then for learning theories, there are approximately 32 the last time I did some thorough research. And you could break them down into these bigger concepts of behavioral theories and constructivism and social cognitivism. And the community of inquiry is sort of a combination of social cognitivism and constructivism. The learning taxonomies, this is how you approach the learner's objectives and outcomes. So Bloom's taxonomy is what everybody gravitates to because it's the most well-known, but not many people know that there was a big revision to Bloom's taxonomy by Anderson. The taxonomy of significant learning is very similar. The 6 facets of understanding is very similar. And then there's the solo taxonomy. And these also, just like the learning theories, could go on and on and on, but these are the ones that are most widely accepted and written about. So as I said, putting that all together creates your teaching framework that then is going to influence the design of your assignments and your course and what you ultimately will grade online. There is no one single consensus that any of this is the be-all, end-all. The consensus right now is that we should be employing a little bit of all these different theories, and that it may change depending on the individual student. And when we talk about pedagogical approaches, particularly with online learning and online grading, we want to design for universal design for learning, and we want to have active learning, we want to have interactive learning. Flipped classrooms are great, even if you're in person, having some teamwork. And you always want to differentiate the instruction as well as the assignments and how are they going to present the feedback. Give options and keep them creative throughout the semester. And again, that's going to influence how you set up your assignments, which then sort of dictates how you will be able to or not be able to grade online. So the universal design for learning concept is that we're going to provide multiple means of engaging the student, how they are going to show us what they learned, and what is it that they learned. When we use universal design for learning, it's not about accommodating a particular individual. It's about creating a class and assignments and grading feedback that will accommodate and help the widest range of the class have the most meaningful access to the information. So having said all that, the framework that I tend to ascribe to is the community of inquiry. And it's this idea that we have a social presence in the classroom, we have a cognitive presence in the classroom, and then we have a teaching presence in the classroom. And recently, they've added this idea of learning presence or self-efficacy. And I think it sort of goes along with the idea of teaching presence. It's not just about the way the professor designs the course and facilitates the course. It's also helping the student become a teacher in some ways, right? So when they're giving us their feedback, they're also educating us about their perceptions of the class and helping us figure out where they are in the classroom. But we want them to become self-efficient learners, right? I always say to my students that law is an education career because you're all the time educating your colleagues, your judges, your clients especially. And so being able to be a self-learner and understand how to put that information back out into the world, the community inquiry is a really good system for that, especially for law schools. Socratic method goes right along with this, assuming that you're giving other, these multiple means of representation and feedback. So we're putting it all together. Social presence plus teaching presence creates cognitive presence and this idea of learning presence or self-efficacy. And keep in mind, we have all these other things going on in the background. So if we want to focus on this particular framework, we still should keep in mind the 7 intelligences that need to be reached by what we design, and what educational theories and what learning taxonomy is guiding us to create those objectives. And that's how we get to these pedagogical choices that tell us how are we going to set up the assignment to get us to the grading online part of it. So if you're going to grade online, my best advice is to think of it in the beginning in 2 different ways. So one is, what are the logistics required to put together an assignment that keeps into account all that we just talked about with the community of inquiry? And those logistics are going to be, are you going to grade within your learning management system, or will you be downloading everything and grading directly on your laptop or tablet? That's the next question. Are you going to grade via desktop or via tablet? That's going to make a big difference. And how are you going to maintain anonymity? So we'll talk about this in just a bit, but when you download all of those files from the student, you now have access to all the metadata that they probably forgot to strip out of it. If you don't require your students to strip metadata before they upload an assignment, I would suggest that you do that, because it's a habit that they need to develop. And it's not difficult. It's a push button experience these days. It used to be hard years ago. And there's no reason we can't have students already be thinking about that, but especially because it could impact the anonymity of the project. If you're doing anonymous grading, they really need to strip that metadata before they upload. But then when you download from the systems, if you sometimes Canvas will throw the student's name onto it, even if it was an anonymous assignment. Though if you're grading within Canvas, you're not seeing the names. It's just when you download those files. So it may be that you have to work with your assistant so that they download it and then get it back to just the exam numbers. Your next sort of logistical thing is to consider what kind of feedback method are you going to give. And I think when everybody thought about the title of this presentation, I think everybody gravitated to this idea of tablets or grading within LMS systems. But I also think of it as live grading, right? So even if a student is in the room with you and you're going to pull up their document and sit with them and go through the document together, that still is somewhat online grading. But you could also do live grading asynchronously by recording a video or even audio, and you could have live follow-up, or you could just do the asynchronous feedback and not have any live follow-up. Your rubrics, if you're not working with rubrics, I think probably legal writing professors are more likely to use extensive rubrics, but you can upload those into your LMS system. It serves as a checklist for the students, and it also helps you as you're scoring the assignment. And so are you going to grade within the system, or are you going to grade directly on your machines and re-upload it to the learning management system? And of course, all this time we've got to be thinking about how are we going to have this feedback serve the purpose of social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. When you download this, this button, Instructional Design Models, if you're more interested in the deeper theories about instructional design, this is a great website. That's a clickable button, and you can learn more about, I think there are maybe 26 or 27 different instructional design theories out there. You can find the one that works best for you. But at least in terms of what we need to do for instructional design of setting up an assignment for online grading, I think if you can at least focus on the logistics and your feedback method that you want to use. And throughout the semester, you want to offer different feedback methods on different assignments. I think it really helps students, rather than having 14 quizzes, get creative and do something in addition to a quiz. Maybe instead of a quiz, you have them give some video feedback about a concept, Maybe you've just taught intentional chords, and you want the students to record a video that is them as if they were explaining it to a client, right? Because again, lawyering is educating. So the logistical part of it, to me, I have app fatigue. There's like a new app every day that I want to download and learn, and it's exhausting at this point. So when you think about those logistics, you have lots and lots and lots of options. And again, sort of a dichotomy here. You can think about it as, what is going to be our learning management system platform, or if you're going to give a written exam, a traditional law school exam, what is going to be your exam platform? For some of these issues, you don't have a choice. You're going to use whatever your institution has chosen. But as you can see, don't even pretend like this is an entire list, right? They're adding more and more every day. All of these companies that are on this list, I don't mean this to be selective. These are just the ones that I commonly see and that I'm familiar with. For example, I don't think I included Top Hat. I don't think I included Poll Everywhere. So don't feel like this is what I think is a complete list of platforms or exam platforms. All of them do a lot of things really well, at least one thing really well, but none of them, at least in my experience, none of them have been great at everything. So for example, in Canvas, it does a lot of great things. The speed grader is fine. The calendar system, I think, is horrible. The collaboration, like if you have students working together on something, or even if you wanted to set up a collaboration with a student, I think that's counterintuitive the way that the interface works. So some of these have some problems, and that's why you need to plan ahead and make sure that the way you envision giving that feedback online, whether it's verbal or actually marking a document, what can your platform accomplish? And you may need a combination of these. So when you get organized, first you got to ask that question, well, what is even available to me? You probably don't, even if there's not a policy against it, you probably should not go outside whatever platforms the school is providing you, because you're likely run into some trouble with access for the students. Always thinking about how you're going to preserve anonymity when you download those files. Create your course objectives early, so that's, of course, guiding your assignment development and what type of feedback will help the student realize those objectives. And I recommend global consistency. So if you are a legal writing team and you've developed together a set of objectives for your school, why not go ahead and put all of those into your learning management system so that everybody that teaches that topic can drop and drag those objectives into a rubric when you create your assignment in the learning management system. And that way, over time, you can run feedback reports to see, across the school, not just in your section, how are we doing as a student body in achieving these objectives? And then from there, you can start to realize, well, maybe I should have taught this particular topic a little differently. So set up your assignments properly in your learning management system. If you have doubt about what a particular menu or function does, all of these companies are fantastic about having video tutorials and as well as written walkthroughs on their help pages. So don't feel like it's obvious. There are a lot of, I keep referring to Canvas because that's what I'm most familiar with. But some of the way that they label parts of their assignment menu where you're setting it up, they don't make sense to me. So I had to do a little bit of research to figure out exactly what they mean. Again, you can, if you put them in ahead of time, and these are my solid course objectives that I'm going to have every year, then put those in there, and then it's easy to drop and drag those into your learning management systems, that particular assignment's rubric. Due dates at least within the learning management systems, I've used Microsoft Teams and I've used Canvas and I've used Blackboard, And in all of them, when you're setting up an assignment, you can change due dates per student so that you can, if a student needs extra time, then you can provide for that ADA accommodation without changing the due date for the entire class. Think about the settings, like what type of file are they going to upload, and in a bit I'll tell you why that's super important. So do you want a PDF? Do you want a Word document? Do you want a JPEG? All those things. What is it that you want them to upload? And the other thing that I recommend is the gradebook. I think in Canvas, by default, the gradebook, the students cannot see their grades as you're entering scores and grades. It's only at the end of putting all your scores and grading in that you would click it's an eyeball, I'll show you in a minute, that then posts the grades, right? I would never get into the middle of grading and have 14 students emailing me while I'm still in the middle of grading the rest of the class. Always test drive it. I think all of the learning management systems, when you set up a course, they include a test student. So definitely test drive your assignment as you've set it up and make sure it works properly. And then when you get to the classroom, so after you've set all this up and you have an idea about how you're going to give the feedback online, make sure that the students are comfortable with whatever protocols you've set up. For 1Ls especially, I'm finding that we're naive to think that they have the same tech skills that we have, for example, with Microsoft Word or Adobe Acrobat. As professors and lawyers, we've been using these things for years. It's sort of second nature to us. But the students may never have opened Adobe Acrobat for the purpose of editing or creating a document. And even in Microsoft Word, as a writing professor, I find that students just don't have a lot of experience with it because they've not been in an office setting yet. Maybe they've written 3 or 4 papers through high school and undergrad, but they're afraid to explore the menus. So make sure that they really are comfortable, particularly 1Ls. Yes, I will display the QR code again at the end of the meeting. And just above that, Alice, just above your post, I hope that link is actually working. So when I talk about getting organized, if you are going to download all of the, if you're going to download all of the assignments and grade locally on your desktop or laptop or tablet, I recommend that you, ahead of time, set up a good file system for yourself. So what I do is, and you can see at the bottom the file path that I have. So I have redundant backup in my iCloud drive, but for this particular course, this was for Peking University. So I don't have a lot of access to I don't have storage with them. So I had to store it on my desktop. But for you at your local institution, you're gonna put this into your cloud storage at your university. I think you could run into some possible FERPA issues if you're using a personal device to download all of these educational records. But you see, I've set up a assignment folder, right? The contracts final. I've set up before reviewed are all these student folders here at the top. And then as I review them, because when I grade, I tend to give 2 or 3 passes of review before I actually score. And so as I get through each student, I move them into the reviewed folder. And then when I've got all of them in the reviewed folder and I start scoring them, I move those student folders into the graded folder. And if you wanted to, like if you want, you could go ahead and set up per letter grade folders within your graded folder. The point here, and you don't have to do it this way, of course, you do it however works best for you. But the point is to get it organized very clearly, because when you're back and forth between different devices, you've got your stuff at home, you've got your office desktop, and you've stuff in the cloud, and it just gets very confusing. So be consistent about where you're putting your student files. Again, be aware of FERPA, and have a consistent file path convention. So this is an example of Canvas, the speed grader. And I was going to just like share my screen and go into it, but I knew we would be running short on time because there's so much to cover. So this is what the speed grader looks like. So this was the final office memo for my class last semester. And you can see here on the left where I've just put the arrow, this is sort of navigation. So the left icon is the grade book. The eyeball tells me that all of the students can see their grade now. And then the gears icon, if you were to click that, it would take you to the settings for this assignment. So it won't take you back to the settings for your Canvas account. It will go back to this particular assignment. Now, once everybody has uploaded an assignment, if you try to change something about the settings, Canvas will give you a warning. And in my research, I find that this is very consistent sort of concept of, can they see the grades? Can't they see the grades? A link back to the grade book and so forth. But this is the Canvas example. So on this side, you can see at that point I had graded 20 out of 21, but really I had graded all of them because it's counting the test student as one of the ungraded assignments. And then right next to that, we have the score for this particular student. And you can see that I actually had to scale this, exam to get a good curve. And this next number tells me that this is the first submission within 21. And then we have further navigation to go between students. And then here is the PDF of what the student uploaded. So as you can see, they only put their exam number. And then below that, here's our rubric. So as I said before, I have already put in my course objectives so that I can just drop and drag those by assignment, because some of our objectives are repeated across assignments, or we're expanding on a particular objective. And so if you use that method, you see here on the left, you have a button to view the rubric, and that would take us into editing the rubric for this particular student. So I've already graded this and closed it out. So you can see how it's showing what the student will see. But if you were to view rubric, sorry, that's not clickable, it's a screenshot. If you were to review rubric, that would give us a chance to edit any of these numbers if we needed to. And the students really like this, I think, because it serves as a checklist for them. So on the actual memo over here, you can see all these blue sort of, I don't know, balloons, I guess you would say, pointing marks. And you can change those colors of those balloons. So up at the top right, within this working area, these are your editing tools where you can make comments. And you see the blue dot. If you were to click any of these, it would also give you an option, a little pop-up to change the color of whatever you're doing. And I actually use that a lot when I grade within Canvas. And even when I grade within Adobe Acrobat, I use a lot of different highlighting colors because I want students to know, all right, so I've highlighted this one green because I think it was good, and I want you to know that you did something good. And then for things that I think need attention, I highlight yellow. And if it really needs attention, I might, underline it in red or something. But as you do that, with each of these marks, it's going to give you a bubble to the right where you can type in a comment of why did you put that editing mark there. So very similar to using the review functions within Microsoft Word. So actually, we'll go back. So again, if we look at this top right menu within the working area, and you have all these editing functions, notice there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we go to Adobe Acrobat, and this is the comment menu. So we have dozens and dozens of different ways we could mark up the document. So I tend to have students upload their assignments in Adobe Acrobat, and I've done it always, but I have them upload a PDF. They have to strip the metadata because they would have to if they were filing it with a court. And then I get them all downloaded where I want them to go. And I use Adobe Acrobat for the editing. And if I'm using my tablet, I can use my Apple Pencil to write directly on the tablet the different comments. But also, if I wanted to, click the text button as if I want to, write onto the document. Once I start writing, if I long press on the document, it will give you a little pop-up box, so you can actually handwrite within that box, but then it will convert it to typed text. It's a little, I don't know, cumbersome. It doesn't feel natural to do that. So I'm still getting used to it, but I do like that because I always ask students, do you want to see my handwriting or do you want to see my my typed comments? And I get different opinions about that. And then below we have the traditional Microsoft Word menu, and you see over at the at the far right, hide ink. So if somebody had marked up the document with a stylus or an Apple Pencil, you could hide those ink comments. And then over on the far left, I want to point out a new feature with Word, the editor. So if you click editor, it's going to pop up a new pane on the right that will give you a whole list of all of the spelling and grammar problems in that document. So for me as a writing professor, that really speeds up my grading. Unfortunately, you don't get that option in Adobe Acrobat. So I'm thinking that this fall, I may stick with Microsoft Word, and then we'll just have one assignment at the end that says upload in PDF. So when you use a tablet with handwritten comments, I mean, that's the thing, right? Do you type or do you handwrite? And as I said, my students have given me very different feedback about this. My first year, they loved to see my handwriting. The second year, they did not. I think I have nice handwriting. I don't know. And so and then I realized, oh, well, this could be about different reading comprehension, or maybe some of these students learned cursive but were never really made to use it later in life. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to continue polling the students. It's not really practical to, give personalized, do you want type or do you want written, because the assignments are anonymous, so there's no way to match what student told you what. So I don't know, I would ask your students before you make that decision, if you're going to grade on a tablet. If you are grading on a tablet and you use Canvas, you should download the Canvas Teacher app for your device, because that will allow you to use the Canvas grading system, SpeedGrader, but you will be able to use your pencil on your tablet. Obviously, there's no way, even if you had a touch screen, there's no way on a desktop to mark up a document that way within the traditional Canvas. You have to download this specific app, Canvas Teacher. And I'm going to tell you, I have this app and I hate it. It is one of the worst apps ever. I hope that they're going to improve it and launch us something really fantastic coming up soon. If you're using Microsoft Teams and a tablet, same thing, you're going to just use the inking function. And that's within the review menu, and you click Start Inking. So if we went back to the prior slide with the menus, there is no Start Inking because I took that screenshot from my desktop. And the desktop version of Word does not have this menu option. I explained earlier, you can use your pencil to actually type. You're going to handwrite within this tiny box, and then magically it knows what you've written and puts it into text. You could also use speech to text. I have not spent a lot of time playing with speech to text, but I think it's probably similar to giving live feedback. It's a question of whether you're recording it or not. Do not change the file name. So as I said earlier, if you're going to upload and download, like if you do a batch download from Canvas, it's going to give you a really long file name. Even if you marked it anonymously, it may still accidentally, I don't know how it happens, throw in the name of the student. So you may have to have your assistant name and rename the files if you use batch upload. Of course, you can do them one at a time. That would be very tedious if you were grading 90 torts exams, but be aware of that if you batch download the assignment and you intend to batch upload the assignment when you finish grading, you cannot change the file names. So for live grading, always keep your assignment objectives in mind. So if you're going to record your feedback and grading as you go, and screen share with your student if it's live, and you can record your screen in Windows or Mac. You can record your screen as you're using your computer. You don't have to be within Zoom to record. If you're meeting with the student by Zoom, then you could just, if you're live, you should just share your screen. But if you're going to record it asynchronously for them to view later, you can simply use the record screen function on your computer. But most importantly, if you're giving live feedback, you really have to engage with the student. I always, the very first thing is ask the student, what do you think you did well? And I let them go. And then I say, what do you think you did not do well? And they always contribute. And then that helps me guide what at the very least I need to address to make sure that they realize something about what they thought was a problem. Or, if they think they were brilliant and they were not, they need to know that too. But always use mindful word choices. We're trying to be kind and helpful. Students in live settings, man, especially with writing, we take writing so personally. The students often become defensive. That first 1L writing assignment, it's always this anxiety for me when I give that out because I know that I'm going to get at least 3 students who were English majors and thought that this was just going to be a breeze, but try to diffuse that and help them understand with kind and helpful words. Don't play into that, and don't you become defensive about your feedback. And so always, whatever issues you point out as you're moving along in your live grading, be sure to, as you say it, confirm that the student understands what you just told them, have them speak that back to you, and maybe brainstorm a little bit about what they could do better. And then, I don't think we do this enough, but I'm constantly asking students, well, how do you think this will help you for the bar exam? And how does this overlap with your other courses? Because with that interleaving, and we won't space repetition throughout the rest of their law school career, but the interleaving between the courses, I think really helps reinforce those huge basics that they need to carry with them every day into practice. You don't want to just read the paper while the student sits there. So probably before you have that meeting, you should have already read the paper and at least made some notes. So live grading doesn't necessarily mean you're cold reading the document with them. You should have already gone through it. You're just sitting with them and going through it. And even if you do this in person, I think you should have the student bring a laptop so that they can easily follow along with you. So if you're going to record your feedback, you have some options. You can do it within your learning management system. I don't know if it was obvious, but when you're in the SpeedGrader, at the bottom where it gives you a chance to add comments, there is a media icon, and you could record a video of yourself or just audio of yourself. And you could do that as you're grading. If there are some fallbacks, particularly if you are limited with what file size can you upload or download at your institution. So you may want to think about Panopto or Kaltura. These are video capturing devices. So Panopto is new to me at Cal West. I don't have a lot of experience with it yet, but I assume it's very similar to Kaltura. At IU, we use Kaltura, and when we record a class on Zoom, it automatically downloads it to Kaltura. It does not download it to my desktop, because by the end of a semester, you would have killed all of the memory in your computer. So if you're not aware, ask your institution, what are we using to store video? Again, consider the file size, because recordings can tend to get pretty big. So what is it? Or you can save locally to the cloud, right? And then for your editing, it's funny that people will start recording a video of themselves and they'll mess up and they'll start all over at the beginning and start recording again. That's a really bad idea and a waste of time. Once you start your recording, don't just let it go. Keep rolling. The film is rolling. Keep rolling, and then later you can go back and edit. So, are you going to edit within the same app or platform where you recorded it, or if you're on a Mac, you could use Final Cut Pro, outrageously expensive program. There are a number of options, just like everything. There are a number of options for video and audio editing. But the simplest thing is probably just to edit it within whatever platform you recorded it. So if you recorded it within Kaltura or Panopto, use those tools to work on editing out your bloopers. Also, I recommend, I'm terrible at this. I have a dot beside my webcam, but I cannot help but look at everybody else in the gallery. So do put a dot beside your webcam so that you remember to look directly at the camera. And finally, I think exploring and being willing to explore all these apps and options, that really is the key here. You can't break this software. If you could break it, they wouldn't put it in a menu that you could get to. So be brave and explore every inch of Microsoft Word, of Adobe Acrobat, of Canvas, Blackboard, whatever you're using, and really get to know the software. It's really not difficult. We're not asking anybody to program anything. We're just explore the menus. That's what I tell students. So we have about 15 minutes left. And so I would say be in touch. If you have more questions, I know that was really fast to get through for a lot of information. And I have lots more information to share if you want to hear about it. So feel free to email me. This phone number is the school's phone number because I don't know my phone number yet. And don't email me at my old law firm address that shouldn't be on the slide. Are there questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Jones, for a great presentation. We're running a little short on time. But one of the questions I think is probably, it also relates to one of the comments. Where might people find tutorials to help with this?
Yeah, I think the best place for tutorials is either going to be the platform's own tutorial website. They all have one. Microsoft's is pretty good. Adobe's tutorials, I'm not fond of. I feel like there are better tutorials on YouTube. But if I don't know, students ask me all the time how to solve a tech problem, and I don't know the answer. I go to YouTube and figure it out. YouTube is a great source for quick tech walkthroughs.
Fantastic. We're supposed to end at 2:45. I don't want to keep people. Let me go ahead and again, if you have other questions, please direct them to Professor Jones. And the link I put in the chat again at the end. I'll do it again right now. And that is to this slide presentation. Is that correct, Professor Jones?
Yes.
Okay. So that should get you to the slide presentation if you'd like it. All right. So real quickly, upcoming, we still have some more webinars in this series. And on your screen, you can see we have the Law Practice Technology and Professional Responsibility webinar on the 21st. Then using an Excel spreadsheet as a trial notebook on the 28th. And then learning games as an inclusivity tool on August 4th. Please feel free to join us for those. Those are going to be some great webinars as well. Lastly, we really do value your feedback with regard to these webinars. It's important. So if you would, please fill out the survey. You'll get a link to that. Also, feel free to join the section on technology, law, and legal education. Thank you so much for your attendance today. It's been a great presentation. Thank you again, Professor Jones. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending.